osmosis, I'll swim through the sea. I'll climb to the mountain tops. Won't you come follow me? I'll take time to notice all that I see. And after I've come so far, you know where I'll be. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. But life is a vision, that's how it should be. The world is a canvas, and the choices are free. At the end of the journey, where all is complete, they'll all wonder where I've gone, but you know where I'll be. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. Our dreams last forever, for all that we know. The roads come together, and that's where we'll go.
Buenas, my Carnesia. I'm Troy Torres. It is Monday, November 18, 2019. Well, it's almost Tuesday, November 19, 2019. Sorry for the late start tonight. It has been a busy night in the news. We've been putting out our news stories on kanditnews.com. Anyway, Johnny's not here because she is Mom of the Year. She is celebrating Johnny Girl's 9th birthday. And so happy birthday and many sweet blessings to Johnny Girl.
Don't forget
John Mui, yes. Let me get to John Mui in just 1 second while I pull something up here. So, Jun Mui has a automotive mechanic and detailing shop, auto body and detailing shop. And he's pretty bad arse. Hold on, I'm trying to get something off of my WhatsApp so I don't have to show it. Source information and okay, so I got it. Let me go to June. Oh, yeah. Can you go to my screen now? So Jun Mui runs Movies Garage. If you give him a call at 688-2944 to get an estimate, or maybe you don't know exactly what you want done, he can help guide you through it. He has been fixing up rides for years, for actually a couple of decades, I think. It's his thing. If you can see on his Facebook page, just search for Jun Mui. You'll see all the great stuff he's able to do. All the stuff that I just don't know how to pronounce or know what it is, because all this automotive stuff is Chinese to me. And China is our main story tonight, speaking of that. You can call him at 688-2944 if you mention Kandit or Johnny or Eric Rosario or Troy. You'll get a discount for going to his business. So if you need your car to look nicer, if you need some work done, if you need it to be detailed, if you want to see the chick who's on the left side of the cover photo of his screen, I don't know who she is, no clue, but she does look like she's rocking it, right? I mean, that's coming. And so Eric the hetero says, "Thank you, Lord." I, the homo, I'm just being generous to my hetero brethren. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So we have we have three big stories tonight, but we're going to start with activity by the Guam Police Department tonight. It is a full night of crime. There is something in the air. Something is happening around this island, from police chases on Route 16 to a riot near Pacific Gardens, an incident involving defensive wounds from a baseball bat near the old Blockbuster behind Submarina in Deredo. There have been disturbances in Agate, calls for disturbance in Ipan Salafofo. The responding to threat that someone with registered concealed firearms was going to shoot somebody at the Taj Mahal Apartments, and also sadly the investigation into a rape. And at this moment, police are in pursuit, but maybe about sometime before the show started, in the jungles of a suspect, but a rape victim taken in. It's a very sad situation. There's a lot of crime going on tonight, and the police are very busy at work trying to keep our streets safe. So a lot of kudos to the men and women of the Guam Police Department who kissed their children goodbye when they went to work to risk their lives to keep the rest of us safe. And if all of us can just keep our tempers down, smoke some weed, don't go to the game room, that's bound to incite family violence. Keep it cool it down. Don't drink, because that's just like an invitation to violence, especially on a night like this. Maybe watch some Netflix. Vape your CBD. Don't watch the Guam legislature. Just do something that will not get your heart pressure or your heart rate and your blood pressure going up there, all right? Except while you're watching Kandit News, because we do have a few stories that might increase your blood pressure. So, did I say Hafa Day to everybody? I did? Okay, I want to make sure. Would you guys mind if I just turned on my Kandit page so I can see your comments? If you just give me a second. I like the name of our show. Crackdown, Chinatown, Saipan. Only one of our stories tonight is regarding the federal shakedown in the CNMI. The first two stories are Guam related. Hang on one second, Nate. Oh, it's hot. Big Trouble Little China? Let me say hi to everyone. Hi, Hafide Angela Guerrero, Mike Rosansky. That's our Candid and MDL on the go cello right there, Mike Rosansky. And let's not forget Lance D, who is all on the clock all the time, MDL on patrol. Kandit on patrol. Irene Alcantara, Hafaday. Mike says Hafaday, Ali, Johnny, Troy, and brother Eric. Um, our premier Cella, Prima, Johnny Rosario says hi, guys. Johnny, thank you for giving birth to that sweet baby Johnny girl. Destiny Farnham says Hafaday Candid Familia. So does Carl L.G. Blas, who says Hafaday Daniel Perez. June Joy Payelu. Trace Uggan. They all say hello, Hafaday. Brad Hewitt says, ought to be good. Garapan is a syndicate hub for washing money. Oh, Brad, it is well beyond Garapan. Oh, my goodness. It is. Oh, my goodness. It's really bad. Mike Rosansky says, happy birthday, Johnny Girl. Kelly Cruz says, hi. Destiny Farnham says, happy birthday, Johnny Girl. Best wishes. Kelly Cruz says, buenas Candid news. Jason Gumatautal says, Hafaday. Brad Hewitt says, hot import nights chicks. I think that's in reference to the June movie garage thing, right? Is that what she is? Is she a hot import nights chick? Yeah, right? All I know is that her body looked perfect, right? Was she even wearing a bra? I don't think so. I you know what? If I were a girl, I would hate her. James Howard is alerting us to a Leonoid meteor shower. I guess it's happening now. And he says, yes, smoke cannabis. Christine Flores is laughing. Pui Pui Kentucky says, hey, can I get a batch? A batch? What were we talking about? Marijuana. Oh, marijuana. I get it. Christine Flores says, yes, please smoke ganja and eat till you sleep. You know, I'm not going to follow that whole eat thing, okay? Because I won't say who, but someone at the gym who hasn't seen me in a couple of weeks was like, Troy, why'd you stop running? And I wanted to throw him off the balcony. Mike Rosansky says, if my wife is here, are you hungry? WhatsApp me, I'll be home soon. Hi, Cheddar Halstead. Hi, Jonathan Safaris. Hi, my auntie from another auntie, Rosalind and Michael Cruz. Let's get started with our first news story for the evening. And I need to refresh my thing. That wasn't as smooth as I would have liked it to be. Oh, you guys, I'm tired, okay? I'm tired. It's like almost 12 o'clock. I'm a loser these days. But I guarantee you, by the time I hit the sack, my eyes are going to open like meth eyes. The insomnia that exists for us in our 30s, nearing 40s. You guys know what I'm talking about. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of you are out getting an Ambien. Some of you are trying the new CBD stuff, you know? I haven't tried anything yet because I'm trying to convince myself that I'm not at that age, even though I am. So our first story for the evening. Oh shoot! I don't know if I sent you the picture, Chelu, but the DOC director is on leave. Do you have that? Can we show the picture? So she was at the commissary today, and Kangan, Director of Corrections Samantha Sam Brennan was caught at the commissary today, and you know, we didn't know. Like maybe she resigned, maybe she was terminated, maybe she signed for leave. There she is in the black getup and the Zoris. Hey, you know, like people can sign for leave, and that's a legitimate thing. And so we asked the governor's director of communications what it was, and Janella Carrera said, "quote Miss Brennan is on leave." Now we haven't verified that yet with the bureaucrats within the Department of Administration or at the governor's office. We just And, you know, Kandit is not going to take Janella Carrera's word for it. But as for now, we don't want to jump to any conclusions. Sam Brennan, the Director of Corrections, apparently was on leave today, and that's why you see her shopping at the commissary in the middle of the morning. The issue that I suppose some commenters have, aside from not believing that she was on leave, is, well, you know, Rome is burning, and you're playing your fiddle. Just a few days ago, the governor had to meet with about 50 correctional officers at DOC because they are beyond disgruntled with the leadership at the Department of Corrections. Most of the officers, just one by one, they talked about the problems they had with the incumbent director. And from leadership stems other problems, according to them, okay? And to be fair, it's not like Sam Brennan was there in her own defense. She was not allowed in the meeting because the officers, and to be fair to the officers, uh, they feared retribution if she was there to hear what they had to say, frankly, to Governor Lulian Guerrero. And they said that it's because when they've spoken up before, they've been retaliated against by the director and by upper management. They brought up very bad problems that fall way below U.S. Department of Justice standards, the sort of stuff that got the prison placed on a permanent injunction that had to be cleared up over, I think, 3 decades. Facilities issues, facilities that are decrepit and that are unsafe both for correctional officers and for prison inmates and detainees. Substandard housing conditions for the prisoners and the detainees that puts out of whack a few of the cells, which of course exacerbates the entire crowding situation at DOC and makes the security issue for DOC officers that much more unsafe. The disbanding of the Special Operations Response Team that apparently on one night was sorely needed when an officer was having a lot of trouble in one unit with 60 people in it, and this one person who was so strong he was banging on the concrete walls. The concrete wall was beginning to break, and relief did not come for hours later when his replacement person, the shift change thing happened, and then there were 2 of them to help solve the situation with that inmate. There were a lot of problems that these DOC officers talked about, and a few days later, the Director of Corrections is on leave. Now, what kind of leave that is, we're going to ask the governor's office tomorrow what that is. We're going to ask for the documentation. If they don't provide the documentation right away, we're just going to go to whatever agency has it and demand to inspect it because, well, we happen to think that this is a matter of urgency, that the problems at the prison deserve the urgency of the government and the public's attention because already they've had 4 escapes this year. Already the public's safety has been endangered by the problems happening at the prison. And if the officers themselves are the ones talking about these problems, then it must be really bad. And so there is a sense of urgency in that, not just in that, but also if you think about the case of that poor 27-year-old woman who was just randomly shot. There was a random shooter on the loose. Have you guys thought about this? The 27-year-old woman who was shot 6 times in the face and in her arms. She's pregnant. She might lose her baby. The doctors are trying to save the baby. She, according to family members, not doing so well, was shot by someone they didn't know. Just a random shooter in Paget, Manilao. The police are asking for the public's help to identify who this might be. Many times before, the police have had, they've been able to do their police work. They've been able to solve these sorts of crimes in their investigations because assailants, most of the time, talk about their crimes. They brag about it to someone, and so that, this is Guam. It's going to get out somewhere. But if this is a sick mind, and just mind you, Judge Michael Bordallo released that dog killer. There have been a bunch of dog killers on the loose, and once you have a sick mind like that, you graduate. You have a tendency to graduate into something else. If this is someone with a sick mind who is calculated, that person isn't going to tell anyone. They're not going to find this random shooter, and who knows? That random shooter might strike again. Now, hopefully it was just some idiot, some dummy, and he would just love to brag about it to the next person. Guam Police Department can catch this person, or hopefully the evidence that they're able to gather can point to who this suspect is. But these are matters of urgency that are threatening this community. A crime is just all over the place on this island tonight. From north to south, the Guam Police Department is in pursuit of so many people who are committing violent crimes across this island. And so our prayers are with all the victims, our prayers are with the police department, and our prayers are with leadership to do a better job. The second story that we bring you tonight has to do with Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes and some special interest legislation. Wait, give me a second so I can light a cigarette. I'm quitting on December 1st, just, Before we get started, let's get to your comments. Okay. Ben R. Pangolinan says, is she on comp time or annual leave? Well, maybe Janela Carrera is not the best person to ask that question to. He's talking about Sam Brennan, right? Hi, Vic Mesa. That's my brother-in-law. Now I bet he's going to get in lots of trouble because I said that. Doreen Pangolinan says hi. Hi, Doreen. Hi, Melvin Santos. Brad Hewitt says she's buying commissary goods for her inmates. Cheater Halstead is laughing at what Brad said. Rosalind and Michael Cruz say, is she related to Connie Jo Brennan? Asking for a friend. That's her sister. Connie Jo Brennan is Sam Brennan's older sister. Jason Gumatao is doing the oh my god. I think that's the oh my god emoji, right? Like that. Melvin Santos says Buenos Todos. James Howard says OSHA is in the mix now and most likely DOJ. I would hope DOJ is in the mix. Cheater Halstead says Guam is not safe for civilians due to GovGuam corruption. In many, many ways, Cheater, you are absolutely right. Melvin Santos says they are all untouchable under MAGA Haga Lu in bubbles. Ben Pangolinan says those problems have been ongoing for the past previous administrations, going way back. It's nothing new. The problem with the government is you place a band-aid solution on the situation and hope that's enough to get the government by without forking out more money. And that's what Johnny said a number of times. It's just the band-aid solution. It's not the looking forward that our leaders tend to pay attention to. They don't pay attention to the future planning, urban planning, things like that, and then we get ourselves in situations like these where we're always catching up with the band-aid fixes and the political solutions. Martin Barcinas Rages is watching. Buenas, so is Biba Guam, who says, Buenas, Guam. Jason Kumatata says, Troy, your TV behind you, it's crooked. Oh my God, I love that so much. So, yesterday Eric was like, Cello, do you want me to fix the crookedness of the TV? I was like, no, Cello, because I love it when someone points it out. It just cracks me up. Earlier, we released breaking news when Kandit found out that a bill introduced today by Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes regarding the Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act wasn't actually drafted by her and her staff. It was drafted by doctors and by Francis Santos with Guam Regional Medical City. Now, here's the deal. Doing something like that is like making a bill or putting a round table together about the price of gas, right? And like, let's say the topic is setting a cap on the price of gas throughout Guam. Cannot be more than, let's say, $3.50. Let's say, right? Then giving that idea to all of the gas companies on the island and letting them write a bill that says the cap shall be $10.50 a gallon, and then introducing it for the gas companies. That is what Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes did. Now, This should disgust everybody. What happened today should disgust everyone. The Speaker has a draft bill that she did not introduce that would repeal the Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act and replace it with a 182 182-day wait period. Now, what that will do is, if you have a claim against a doctor for medical malpractice, all you do, you put that claim in, and 182 days later, the claim matures, and there's a chance for the doctor to respond, and then you to respond back to the doctor. And if you're not satisfied after that 182-day period, by all means, take it to court, sue the doctor. The Speaker didn't introduce that bill. She introduced a totally different bill that says that if you believe that you've been wronged by a doctor, or that someone who died, like your wife died, or your child died, or your father died as a result of medical malpractice, if you cannot afford it because the initial filings are in the tens of thousands of dollars, and then the full arbitration itself will run you in the hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the cost of sending an arbitration team to Guam and housing them and feeding them and all of that stuff, which according to Guam law is the responsibility of the person making the claim. The doctor pays nothing but their own legal costs. That's what Guam law is right now with this Medical Malpractice Arbitration Act that was created by a doctor and was supported by doctors. Well, no duh. They're going to support themselves. They're going to protect themselves. It's protectionist special interest legislation that's been around since the 1970s, was reenacted in 1990, I can't remember, 1990 something. So the Speaker's rather snowflake solution, she calls it a solution. She says she's listened to Mr. Lebowski and the others who went before the legislature with their very heartbreaking stories about how their loved ones died or are dying at the hands of doctors who've committed malpractice on this. Bad doctors. And let's not pretend that bad doctors don't exist. Let's not just look at our doctor who may be a good doctor and think that all doctors are good doctors. No, in every profession, there are bad apples. But in the doctor's profession on Guam, the bad apples can flourish because they never have to worry about being held accountable for their bad decisions or their neglect, their negligence, their wrongdoing. Because there's this law that protects them from responsibility and accountability for their actions. Tina Mooney Barnes has a compromise, that she calls it like a compromise after hearing everybody, and instead of getting rid of the medical malpractice mandatory arbitration provisions, she instead wants to dedicate $100,000 of your money, taxpayer dollars, to pay for the arbitration costs of the claimants. There are some problems with that. First, that $100,000 will only cover about 2 to 3 people. What happens after that? She says that the fund for this arbitration costs for what she calls indigent people would be supplemented by continuous fees whenever doctors and nurses relicense. For doctors, $150 per doctor, and for nurses, $50 per nurse. That will raise nothing close to what's needed for the number of claims that would arise from people who have a legitimate concern that malpractice had been committed against them or against a deceased loved one. And so the other thing about it is that she and her staff just don't get it. It's not just indigent people who can't afford the cost of arbitration. It's also working people. It's also people who we might even consider relatively rich. They have a bunch of money in their savings account. They own land. Maybe they own 2 homes, or maybe they own a home and an apartment complex. Even they are priced out of being able to afford an arbitration suit. You have to be a filthy millionaire in order to have the kind of cash flow to afford arbitration proceedings. And yet, she wants to donate your tax dollars so that this can happen just for 2 to 3 people, it's not a solution. And the worst part about all this is that it ain't even her draft. The draft that she had was kicked to the side, and by the Speaker's office's own admission, this draft was put together by doctors. There is even, let me just read you the story so that, in case I've been bouncing around. Speaker Tina Munya-Barnes' legislation augmenting Guam's medical malpractice laws was drafted by the same doctors who opposed granting poor and working class patients an outlet to sue them for malpractice. Kandit also requested information from Senator Hello Taitigui, a leading proponent of due process rights for patients, which showed that Ms. Munya-Barnes' bill is identical to draft legislation Francis Santos provided to senators prior to the third informational hearing on malpractice reform. Mr. Santos is the chief financial officer of Guam Regional Medical City, one of the main parties to a malpractice suit by the parents of baby Faith Taitigui, the infant who died from malpractice following the birth of her and her twin sister. Under current Guam law, if a person has been hurt by a doctor or a doctor's negligence led to the death of a loved one, the aggrieved party cannot even begin the process of holding the doctor accountable without forking out tens of thousands of dollars in arbitration filing costs. This is because under the current law, in order to hold doctors accountable, medical malpractice arbitration is required at the expense of the party bringing the claim against the doctor. The price tag for this arbitration rises to the hundreds of thousands once you factor in the cost of airfare and lodging for the arbitration panel to come to Guam. Put simply, the law makes it impossible for non-millionaires to seek justice and to hold bad doctors accountable. It protects bad doctors. The Speaker's legislation, Bill number 248-35, introduced today, will continue to limit due process rights to the vast majority of Guam's population from being able to seek justice from doctors who botch medical procedures or cause death through malpractice. Her bill will take $100,000 of taxpayer money and place it into a fund from which patients may use to begin mandatory arbitration against doctors who hurt them. That amount, in practice, will cover no more than 2 or 3 claims filing fees. It comes nowhere near the amount needed to bring an arbitration panel to Guam to adjudicate claims. Despite 3 informational hearings conducted by Health Oversight Chairwoman Senator Therese Terlahi that included the heartbreaking testimonies of parents who lost their children to malpractice and a woman whose father is fighting for his life because of malpractice, Ms. Munya-Barnes not only sided with doctors, she introduced special interest legislation that is favorable to them. Her bill does nothing to address the culture of doctor apathy toward accountability for their practice of medicine while placing the financial burden of arbitration on taxpayers. And then I want to read you this, if you see it on the screen, it's this couple screenshots of text messaging conversation between. Well, it says there's 3 people in this chat room, but I don't know who they are. But the DS is Dr. Shea, and then the person in the middle is Chirag Bojwani, who is Speaker Tina Munya-Barnes' Director of Policy. Wait 1 second. It says, Chirag asks to Dr. Shea and whoever the second person is, would it be accurate to say it came from the entire medical community? From my understanding, they had a meeting with all the different professions. Now, this question was sent to Dr. Shea after I sent a question to the speaker's chat room on WhatsApp asking whether Francis Santos drafted the bill that Speaker Tina Munya-Barnes introduced. So Chirag goes on to his chat room and he messages Dr. Shea and someone with the initials AA and asks, would it be accurate to say it came from the entire medical community? From my understanding, they had a meeting with all the different professions. Now, first of all, why is the Speaker's office asking for confirmation about who drafted the Speaker's bill? Secondly, who is this they? From my understanding, they had a meeting with all the different professions. Who is they? And what meeting was this that the public didn't know about? What are these closed-door things that are happening on something as important as this? So anyway, Dr. Shea responds, Absolutely. We produced a skeleton draft, which you modified. There's the assurance to Chirag. Ask Troy he can call me. My cell number in Hawaii is blah blah blah. I will be putting my grandson to sleep. By the way, you don't need to be harassed and answer every question. Ask Troy to go and speak to his own doctor. It's a good bill. It ensures access to arbitration. The very complaint they said prevents access. So they should be happy, very happy. Have a good night. Aloha. And don't forget to tell those who complain to go and speak to their own doctors, please. That is the best response. Oh, so you want us to talk to the people who benefit from the current medical malpractice mandatory arbitration act. You know, that is freaking smooth. The Speaker's Policy Director, Chirag Bhojwani, confirmed with Kandit and the other media stations that Ms. Munya Barnes' bill was drafted by doctors who had been lobbying the senators. In fact, Mr. Bhojwani provided to the media screenshots of his messages with Dr. Shea, who confirms doctors' lobbying of this particular bill. Despite Mr. Bhojwani's assurance that the involved doctors are, quote, not trying to pass or defeat a bill, but to share a concern, unquote. I'm sorry, let me just read the whole statement from Chirag first. He says, they're not paid to lobby. He's talking about the doctors. They are affected stakeholders and not trying to pass or defeat a bill, but to share a common concern. Chirag told the media, referring to the role of these doctors have in the formulation of this special interest legislation. Quote, just like we met with Mr. Lubofsky. Furthermore, we met them about our bill and they shared their idea. No, Chirag, first of all, it's not like how you met Mr. Lubofsky. None of those doctors had their son killed by a doctor. So it is not like you're meeting with Mr. Lubofsky, because in your meeting with Mr. Lubofsky, he told you the heart-wrenching story about how doctors committed medical malpractice upon his son, and within 2 days, he was dead on Halloween last year. It is not like you're meeting with Mr. Lubofsky. Despite Mr. Bhojwani's assurance that the involved doctors are, quote, not trying to pass or defeat a bill, but to share a concern, unquote, Dr. Shea, in his message to Mr. Bhojwani, says otherwise. Quote, it's a good bill. It ensures access to arbitration. The very complaint they said prevents access. So they should be happy, very happy. Have a good night. Aloha, unquote. Dr. Shea also has a message for proponents of full arbitration reform, quote, and don't forget to tell those who complain to go and speak to their own doctors, please. That is the best response, unquote. But doctors were not the only ones involved in pushing the language of Bill 248 to senators. Prior to Mr. Lahi's third informational hearing on potential medical malpractice reform, GRMC's top financial executive, Francis Santos, began lobbying senators with nearly identical language that Mr. Bhojwani said the doctors helped to create, and that became Bill 248. GRMC is the main party to a lawsuit by the parents of baby Faith Taidagui for medical malpractice that led to the infant's death late last year. Quote, this bill and how it was drafted disgusts me, unquote, said one senator who wished to remain anonymous. As Kandit has reported, Senators Terlahi and Telo Taidagui have been working together on draft legislation that will reform the Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act. Now, why Speaker Tina Munya Barnes rushed to introduce a bill without even consulting with the Legislative Health Committee Chairwoman, Therese Terlahi, who is working on responsible legislation that will reform the Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act, and probably has more of the know-how and the knowledge about what this is about. First of all, she's a lawyer. Secondly, she's the chairwoman of the Health Committee. Third, Senator Telo Taidagui has from the start been researching this issue and trying to bring solutions to the forefront, and she's working with Senator Therese Terlahi about this. You want to know what's disgusting about this entire thing? The only reason that bill was introduced today is because this is the 1-year anniversary of the funeral of Asher Dean Lubofsky. And Speaker Tina Munya Barnes wanted to make a spectacle out of that by introducing a bill crafted by doctors. Sickening. Can we play the Asher Dean Lubofsky video just to remind everyone about what it is that we're trying to do here?
won't you come follow me? I'll take time to notice all that I see. And after I've come so far, you know where I'll be. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. But life is a vision, that's how it should be. The world is a canvas, and the choices are free. At the end of the journey, where all is complete, they'll all wonder where I've gone, but you know where I'll be. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. I'll fly away, fly away, fly away, fly away home. Our dreams last forever, for all that we know. The roads come together, and that's where we'll go.
Our top story. Well, actually, let me see what your comments are on that first. Rosalind and Michael Cruz say that explains that is why Governor Lulian Guerrero did Connie Joe a favor and secured the Brennan sisters' jobs, sa contributions from the dirty gambling money. We have an inquiry into the governor's office. It's funny because Janela Carrera responded very quickly to our question about whether whether Sam Brennan was on leave based on the commissary photo. She very quickly responded, Miss Brennan is on leave. But we sent a question before that about a news tip, well, several tips that we received, that Lauren Bromley, the majority shareholder of Guam Music Inc., donated $10,000 in total via emissaries who each divided that into $1,000 denominations, which would keep them within the campaign finance limits to Governor Lulian Guerrero's November 8 fundraiser at the Hyatt Regency. And the governor's office has not responded yet. Their silence is deafening. James Howard says special interest lobbyists, they are a clever bunch, arrogant, and well-financed. Yes, they are, James. You're absolutely right. Buenas, Charlene Odelia Perez Fong. James Howard says of the speaker's bill, $100,000 ain't shizo. James Howard also says, word it with purpose and conviction, give it no funding to succeed, outstanding logic. Melvin Santos says, everything with this present administration is so corrupted, very sickening to know that we the people are being robbed blindly and abused for their own personal gain in every aspect, to include the president of the senators. Well, I bet you'll love that title, President of the Senate. Oh, he meant present senators. Our business partner, who's on vacay, says of Dr. Shea, so condescending, wow. James Howard says collusion. Melvin Santos says overpaid doctors protected by the government. Right? Okay, let's just think about that for a second. The government has this tendency to protect people who don't need protection, and like forget about the people who kind of do need protection, And it almost seems like in many instances the government goes after those very people, the most vulnerable. It is sickening. Yeah, no money to contribute to that November 8 Lulian Girl $1,000 fundraiser, right? Which I heard was a flop, by the way. Nadine Bam says effers. Viva Guam says doctors offered TMB free examinations to. I really should read stuff before, like. I love that, Viva Guam. I love that. Gina Marie Tenorio Call says, Troy, they think we really are stupid to settle for that weak bill. I don't know what they're thinking, Gina. I don't know. It's like they're stuck in this delusion that the people of Guam, especially with our access to social media and to more information on the fly, are going to fall for this insincerity anymore. Anyway. Hey, Leighton. Let's go to our top story, which is a huge story about what's happening in the CNMI. This is a story by Jacob Nakamura, who is corresponding with us from Susupi, Saipan. Ralph Torres and his brothers are embroiled in a major federal investigation that links the Torreses to a series of alleged corrupt acts and the funneling of Chinese money to interfere with U.S. elections through Saipan's casino. Mr. Torres is the governor of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. His brothers and he run Torres Brothers. All of them, and all but one of their wives, are the subjects of a Federal Bureau of Investigation sweep of Saipan for allegations of public corruption, racketeering, fraud, Hobbs Act violations, and foreign interference in U.S. elections. This is according to public records of just one of several federal raids at different places in Saipan, the raid of the Imperial Pacific International CNMI LLC offices. Mr. Torres' home and the CNMI governor's office also were raided. Among hundreds of boxes of documents, scores of hard drives, thumb drives, ledgers, journals, and cellular phones confiscated by federal agents during the raid into IPI are documents and receipts of land transactions and board meeting minutes seized by the FBI. At issue is the role Mr. Torres and his brothers, wife, and sisters-in-law played in the concealment of transactions, kickbacks to public officials, questioned flow of billions of dollars through the Saipan casino, the operation of foreign interests in Saipan through shell companies, and the laundering of foreign money to influence the U.S. presidential election. According to the CNMI's constitution, under a section titled Alienation of Land, foreigners cannot own property in the NMI. IPI CNMI LLC, which on paper owns the casino in operation in Saipan, is owned and operated as a corporation with one sole member, former Guam Senator Carmen Fernandez, who is of Chamorro descent and may be qualified under the alienation section as an NMI Chamorro. Let's just read that section real quick. This is in the CNMI Constitution. Section 1, Alienation of Land. The acquisition of permanent and long-term interests in real property within the Commonwealth shall be restricted to persons of Northern Marianas descent. Acquisitions defined as the term acquisition used in Section 1 includes acquisition by sale, lease, gift, inheritance, or other means. A transfer to a spouse by inheritance is not an acquisition under this section if the owner dies without issue or with issue not eligible to own land in the Northern Mariana Islands. A transfer to a mortgagee by means of a foreclosure on a mortgage is not an acquisition under this section if the mortgagee is a full-service bank, federal agency, or governmental entity of the Commonwealth and does not hold the permanent or long-term interest in real property for more than 10 years beyond the term of the mortgage. The fact of Ms. Fernandez's sole membership appears in a federal tax lien earlier this year that was filed by the Internal Revenue Service against IPI on the same day that a grand jury began in the U.S. District Court of the NMI. Within days, tax liens were placed against one of the governor's brothers and his wife. Federal warrants and cases were issued, filed, and sealed during the same time frame. However, a closer look at IPI CNMI LLC reveals that the company is a wholly owned subsidiary of Imperial Pacific International Holdings, a Hong Kong-based company incorporated in the Bahamas. It's an offshore company. Inventive Star Limited, a company incorporated in the British Virgin Islands, another offshore company, is the ultimate holding company for Imperial Pacific International Holdings, meaning that is the company that actually owns the Saipan casino. A billionaire Chinese woman named Xu Li is the ultimate controlling party. Miss Ji is listed in Forbes magazine for her wealth. According to a July 10, 2019 public announcement by Miss Ji in Hong Kong, the corporate owners of the Saipan Casino purchased half the interest of American Sinopan LLC, which owns two large parcels of Saipan land, one of which is the future site of the Kasha Resort and Casino with its planned 1,700 rooms that are under construction now. Quote, in view of the location and the uses of the lands under the target company, the directors consider that the acquisition of the target company, that's American Sinopan LLC, 50%, is in line with the business development strategy and plans of the group, meaning Imperial Pacific. Ms. G stated in the public announcement in Hong Kong related to CNMI business and property. The lands were acquired for US dollars 23,653,131.69. Although CNMI law requires 100% of the members of the board of any corporation owning land in Saipan to be of NMI Chamorro or Carolinian descent, none of the board members qualify under the law. How the company was allowed to skirt CNMI law is under question. However, one fact from the IPI CNMI LLC raid is telling. The only sister-in-law of Governor Torres who was not named in the search warrant as being a target of the investigation is Irene Tudela Torres, married to Governor Torres' brother Jack, and who is the sister of CNMI First Lady Diane Tudela Torres. Irene Torres is the director of the Commonwealth Homestead Division of the Department of Public Lands. According to FBI property receipts of the items taken during the IPI raid are land transactions and receipts and ledgers related to land transactions. Now, I'm not saying that Ms. Torres rhymes with confidential shinformant, but but it's a little peculiar that of everyone in the Torres family, she's the only person not named in these documents, and she just so happens to be the head of the Commonwealth Homestead Division in the Department of Public Lands. Now, I'm not trying to make life hard on Ms. Torres right now in Saipan, but I didn't start this. This is just all, we're just reporting from public documents. Mr. Torres, the governor, has been in the company of some very powerful friends as well, whose parts in this inquiry could ignite an international storm of questions. This is where it gets really good. For instance, of the 7 members of the IPI Holdings Limited Board of Directors, only one is not Chinese, Robert James Woolsey. The national and international media and community may be as keen to that name as the people of the Marianas are to the intrigue of this story. Mr. Woolsey was the director of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency under former President Bill Clinton. Among the crimes being contemplated by the FBI investigation is violation of the federal prohibition against foreign money funding United States elections. Mr. Torres set off a firestorm of interest by investigators back in January 2017 when Bloomberg broke the story of his involvement in the raising of funds from Chinese foreign nationals that could not be traced toward President Trump's re-election campaign, which is next year. I'm sorry, that's worded very weirdly. It was for President Trump's re-election campaign, but the money couldn't be traced or tracked because no one kept accounts. Mr. Trump is enduring impeachment proceedings now in the U.S. House of Representatives. Also involved in the Saipan Casino, former FBI Director Louis Freeh and former Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell are members of an advisory committee that provide, quote, strategic and tactical advice, unquote, on the company's business and government relations. Former Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour, who also was the longtime chairman of the Republican National Committee, also is a member of that committee. In 2017, its chairman was Mark Brown, the man who used to run Mr. Trump's Atlantic City casinos. The revelations so far into this massive federal corruption case in the CNMI may only be the tip of the iceberg. Only time will tell how far things go and who is the first to be announced in the indictments certain to come or that have already come and has been sealed. Boy, you think Guam has problems? Holy cow! This is. And someone made a comment in our previous live about this, or I think it was the written story, um, that they wonder whether this will spill over to Guam. We have heard some scuttlebutt about how one Guam senator with some ties to Saipan also is under investigation for connections to these alleged crimes. So we'll see. We will see. Only time will tell. Now let's see what your comments are about this. Melvin Santos says these Chinese investors have infiltrated the whole Marianas to include the highest level in Guam. Money talks, BS walks. That is why the Chinese investors are trying to buy a lot of real estate here on Guam. You know, I'm not sure. So Guam has a Chinese community, and they've been here for a long time. They've made Guam their home. I don't know whether any of these like Hong Kong-based, Bermuda offshore company, what British Virgin Islands, Bahamas offshore accounts, all these shell companies or whatever are making some sort of mark here in Guam. I'm not sure. What I do know is that Guam has its own robust community of Chinese descent citizens who many of them are U.S. citizens. All of them have made Guam their home for a very, very long time. And so that's very different from what's happening in Saipan. In Saipan, this is like straight up people from China who do not live in the CNMI and have not made their mark in the CNMI for decades and decades or years and years or whatever that is, through shell companies parked in the Bahamas, in Bermuda, the British Virgin Islands, all these offshore accounts, all these shell companies that go from one holding company to another holding company and then finally arrive in Saipan under the guise of former Guam Senator Carmen Fernandez. Gina Marie Tenorio Call says, are any of Guam lands of interest by this wealthy Chinese woman? Say that land over by Two Lovers Point. I believe that land over by Two Lovers Point, first of all, is under contention by the ancestral landowners. I believe some of it is Calvo owned and contested. Some of it is Flores owned and contested. Some of it is Cortec owned and contested. Used to be with the Torres family. I don't know. That's the short answer to that question, Gina. We have not taken a look into those interests here on Guam. And to be completely honest with you, I just don't know whether Kandit wants to go there, because we are just, look. Yeah, we like breathing, okay? Let's just put it that way. But we figure, hey, if the feds are covering this stuff in the CNMI, those people have way more to worry about than a small little news station from Guam reporting on what are public documents already and putting the pieces together, basically. But I don't know. We'll think about that, Gina. I'll talk to Johnny and Carlos and Eric and Jacob Nakamura and we'll see whether that's somewhere we want to go. Melvin Santos asked, I wonder who is running for these Chinese investors. Well, funny you should ask, Melvin. There's a guy named Ron Anderson who was making deals left and right with everyone's land in the CNMI. His name is Ron Anderson. He's of Chinese descent, but he's also a U.S. citizen. 2 days prior to the raids into the CNMI by the FBI, he fled Saipan and is rumored to have fled to China, where there's no extradition treaty. There is another rumor that Mr. Anderson returned to Saipan just this morning. We'll try to find out more. Mike Rosansky says, that's me, I'm telling you, they connected to Guam. Torres could be related to Johnny Cool Torres. Well, there's a gambling name. Mike Rosansky asks, coincidence? And then he does the emoji. Rosalind and Michael Cruz say, Chinese connection, nai. I love you guys very much. Johnny and I, Eric and I, all of us here at Kandit, we love you all very much. Thank you for joining us for this late night edition. You guys all have a good and safe night and stay off the streets and don't get violent. Thanks.